The Emerald Ridge Reckoning, C 1.05 million, and the price of betrayal. My in-laws, the Vance family, brutally attacked my child and demanded my silence. Instead, I rushed her to the city general clinic, filed a report with law enforcement, and annihilated their flawless reputation. Anya, my daughter, is 7 now. She is vibrant and healthy, and thankfully, she barely remembers anything from that terrifying day 4 years ago. Her pediatrician credited her young age with helping her mind suppress the trauma. I am forever thankful for that mercy, though I relive every agonizing second. To provide essential context, I must start from the beginning. My husband's family always favored one sibling. His older brother, Elias Vance, was the star. He was married to Serafina, a powerful real estate developer, lived in an exclusive Emerald Ridge mansion, and had 3 children. In contrast, at 26, I was raising Anya alone, after my husband, Liam Vance, abandoned us the week after her birth. I worked nights stocking shelves at a warehouse, earned my HR certification online, and raised Anya on sheer willpower and frozen meals. My in-laws' favoritism was constantly clear through endless small slights. Elias's children received trust funds for holidays, while Anya got C15, Coastal Credits gift cards. Elias's family was always front and center in every family portrait, with Anya and me relegated to the periphery. My mother-in-law, Patrice, would dramatically sigh whenever I mentioned my struggles with shift work, but she'd instantly volunteer to watch Elias's children. I convinced myself it didn't matter. Anya had me. I had her. We were enough. Yet, children are perceptive. Anya started asking why Grandma always complimented her cousin's new clothing, but never hers. Why did Grandpa Robert teach Titus, Flora, and Xavier how to play chess, yet rarely spoke to her? I offered excuses because I desperately wanted her to have a family beyond just me. That damp autumn Saturday started like any other compulsory Vance get-together. Grandpa Robert was grilling expensive steaks on the deck. Patrice was doting over Serafina's gourmet lavender cookies. Elias was loudly pontificating about the stock market to any trapped listener. The children were outside, chasing a drone, their laughter filling the air with the unique sound of unburdened joy. Anya was behaving perfectly. She always tried her hardest at these gatherings, as if she could purchase their affection with impeccable manners. She shared her limited edition Stellar Trooper figures. When Titus carelessly dropped her favorite action figure, she just said, "Be careful, please." She even gave Patrice a sincere compliment on her new gemstone necklace, earning a brief, distracted touch on the shoulder. Then the incident occurred. Flora, who is 9 and possesses Serafina's demanding streak, decided she wanted Anya's special edition Cosmic Pop over her own, which was sitting untouched. It had to be Anya's. Anya had saved it, having eaten her veggie skewers first, just as I'd taught her. Anya moved her dessert plate away as Flora lunged for it. "It's mine," Anya said quietly. "You have your own." Flora's face turned red with fury. She grabbed the plate anyway. Anya held on firmly. The plate tipped, and blue raspberry Cosmic Pop topping splattered all over Flora's pristine white jacket. Serafina arrived first, scooping up Flora as if she'd been viciously attacked. "What did you do?" She glared at Anya with such hostility that I immediately stepped between them. "It was an accident," I stated calmly. "Flora tried to take Anya's treat." "And now you're accusing my daughter of lying," Serafina sneered, her voice dangerously low. Grandpa Robert said, "Your unruly brats threw food at my granddaughter." "That's incorrect. I saw the entire thing," Patrice said, immediately taking Serafina's side without hearing the full account. "Clara, my name. For heaven's sake, can't you control your child? Look at Flora's jacket. It's ruined. It's sugary topping. It will wash out. I looked at Anya, whose small face was etched with fear. Honey, go inside and wait by the door. My father-in-law yelled across the yard. She's not going anywhere until she apologizes. He arrived, holding a flask and wearing the habitual scowl he reserved for Anya and me. Dad, she doesn't need to apologize for defending her food. He jabbed a thick finger at me. Don't you contradict me. You've raised her with zero discipline, no respect. She will apologize right now, or I'll be teaching her manners. A sickening realization washed over me. You are not teaching her anything. We are leaving. I reached for Anya's hand, but Serafina grabbed my wrist tightly. You always do this. You can't just run away every time your kid misbehaves. She needs to face consequences. Let go of me. I wrenched my arm away. Robert moved faster than his bulk suggested. He seized Anya's arm before I could react. She screamed in pain as his grip tightened. Dad, stop it, please. I tried to pull Anya free, but Patrice grabbed my other arm. Let him handle this, she shrieked. You clearly can't. Handle what? She's 7 years old, I screamed, desperately pulling against my mother-in-law's hold. Serafina had stepped behind me, pinning my arms. Robert dragged Anya toward the garage door. She was sobbing and pleading for me, and I was thrashing with everything I had, but my in-laws were too powerful together. Elias just stood there watching, his phone out, probably recording for his legal protection. Your little terror needs to learn respect, Robert said loudly. He fumbled with his belt, the leather strap sliding free from his trousers. Pure, paralyzing horror flooded my chest. No, Dad, please, stop! He raised the heavy belt. Anya received the first strike across her small back. She wailed. Something broke inside me, something deep and irreversible. The second strike hit her legs. She tried to curl into a ball, still calling for me. Stop it! Stop it! I was kicking, biting, and struggling to break free. My mother-in-law backhanded me across the face. Be quiet, you're just making things worse. This was the third strike. The fourth. Anya's cries were becoming weaker, strained. The fifth strike landed heavily across her shoulders. She crumpled to the ground. The blows continued to rain down on her tiny form, and then she went silent. Absolute silence. Excellent work, Dad. Serafina's voice was filled with chilling approval. She released my arms as if she were letting go of a coat. Now she'll know better to touch my kids. Patrice and Elias instantly crowded around Serafina as if she had just shared profound wisdom. Robert was breathing heavily as he rebuckled his belt. Patrice was already smoothing Serafina's jacket, muttering about how they would never let anything harm her perfect children and how they knew how to discipline a child properly. I stood there, free finally, my entire body trembling violently. Anya was motionless. She was lying on the concrete like a discarded doll, her bright dress torn and dark stains beginning to spread. Patrice looked at me with eyes as cold as granite. Pick her up and leave. You have ruined our relationship with Elias's family. Never set foot in this home again. I moved forward on legs that felt completely disconnected. I knelt beside Anya and gently lifted her. She was breathing, but shallowly. Her eyes remained closed. She had a gash on her forehead from the fall. I stood up, cradling my child, and looked at each of them. Robert was still smirking faintly. Serafina was scrolling on her phone. Patrice remained rigid and emotionless. Flora, Titus, and Xavier watched from the porch, treating it like free entertainment. I didn't say a word. I carried Anya to my sedan, carefully strapped her into her car seat, and drove straight to the city general clinic. The ER attending physician took one look at Anya and called a full pediatric trauma team. Within minutes, we were surrounded by nurses, specialists, and a social worker. They carefully cut off her dress. They meticulously documented every mark, bruise, and welt from that belt. Someone counted 14 separate impact sites. Anya's injuries were photographed by a nurse who was visibly upset. She repeatedly apologized to me as if documenting the evidence made her complicit. I squeezed her shoulder and told her she was helping us. Every photograph she took was another guarantee of justice. Dr. Marcus Choi, the attending physician, led me to the hallway while the team continued their assessment. He looked young, around 35, with steady eyes that missed nothing. "Your daughter has significant trauma," he stated flatly. "In addition to the visible contusions and lacerations, I'm highly concerned about internal injuries. She definitely suffered a concussion from the fall that struck her head. We need a detailed MRI scan to rule out any internal bleeding or brain swelling. We're also checking for kidney injury and internal bleeding from the blows to her abdomen." My legs felt weak. Dr. Choi put a hand on my shoulder and guided me to a bench. "You need to be strong for her," he said firmly. "Anya needs to know you are here fighting for her. Can you do that?" I nodded, forcing air into my lungs. "Yes, whatever she needs." "Good. Now, I need complete and total honesty. Has this ever occurred before? Any prior injuries or instances of physical discipline from family members?" "My father-in-law has always been harsh," I confessed, the words tasting like copper. "He would sometimes grip Anya's arm too hard or yell at her with excessive aggression. But he had never laid a hand on her before. I swear, if I had ever known he was capable of this, I would never have taken her there." Dr. Choi scribbled on his tablet. "The social worker will need this information. I am legally mandated to report suspected child abuse, and this goes far beyond suspicion. This was documented, photographed, and witnessed. The authorities will be involved whether you choose it or not." "I want them involved," I declared fiercely. "I want everyone involved. I want him arrested and prosecuted, and I want the whole world to know what he did to my baby." Something shifted in Dr. Choi's expression. Perhaps respect, or recognition for a mother's finally unbottled rage. "Then we'll ensure you have everything you need to make that happen." Anya awoke while they were examining her. She was confused and in deep pain when she cried out for me. I held her hand through the procedure, whispering that she was safe now, that I had her, and that no one would ever harm her again. The social worker pulled me aside. Her name was Evelyn Reed, and her eyes were kind but had obviously witnessed too much sorrow.
"I need you to tell me exactly what transpired." So I did. Every detail, word, and terrifying moment. I was restrained while my father-in-law beat my 6-year-old daughter for refusing to relinquish her dessert. "We are notifying the police immediately," Evelyn stated. "This is a case of severe child abuse. Your daughter has a concussion, multiple contusions, and suspected internal bruising. She is being admitted for observation overnight." The police arrived an hour later. 2 detectives, Jasmine Khan and Samuel Rossi. I recounted the story for a 3rd time. They recorded notes, took images of Anya's injuries, and my full statement. They asked if anyone else had seen it. "My entire family watched," I answered hollowly. "My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were holding me back. My brother-in-law, Elias Vance, recorded some of it on his phone." Detective Khan's expression hardened. "We'll need that phone." Detective Rossi leaned forward, his voice professional yet firm. "Clara, please walk me through the sequence again. Every small detail is crucial for the prosecution. Start from the moment you arrived at the residence." So I did it again. The dessert, Flora's tantrum, Serafina's immediate defense of her child without asking questions, my father-in-law escalating the verbal threats to physical violence, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law forcibly restraining me, Elias Vance standing there with his phone out like a detached observer at a minor sporting event. "You mentioned your mother-in-law struck you," Detective Khan noted. "That is a separate charge of assault. We'll be charging her as well." I don't care about me, I said. I only care about Anya. I don't mind that they restrained me and forced me to watch him beat her unconscious. We care about everything, Detective Rossi informed me. Every charge we can make stick is another guarantee that this man will not do this again. Your brother-in-law, Elias Vance, recorded this. He claimed something about documenting the necessary discipline that was taking place. I believe he hoped it would somehow protect them, prove they were only correcting bad behavior.
Detectives Khan and Rossi exchanged a knowing look. People always believe they are smarter than the justice system, Rossi sighed. The video will either clear them or condemn them. Based on what you've told us, I'm betting on the latter. They visited my in-laws' house that night. My father-in-law was arrested for felony child abuse. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were arrested for restraining me and acting as accomplices. Elias Vance reluctantly surrendered his phone after detectives informed him that destroying evidence was a serious crime. The footage was devastating. My father-in-law beating a first grader while two women held back the screaming mother. All captured on video. Elias Vance later claimed he filmed it specifically to prove that punishment was occurring. He genuinely thought it would provide legal cover for them. Instead, it sealed their fate. The following morning, Detective Khan returned to the hospital to update me. She sat by Anya's bed, exhausted but grimly satisfied. "We watched the video," she whispered, quietly, mindful of Anya sleeping soundly. "All 52 seconds of footage that will haunt me for the rest of my career. Your father-in-law's lawyer is already trying to spin it as excessive but appropriate discipline. That went too far, but the prosecutor isn't buying it. We are pushing for the maximum charge." What does that mean? My voice was raw from crying, fury, and sleeplessness. Felonious child abuse resulting in serious bodily harm. If convicted, he faces a prison sentence ranging from 8 to 15 years. Your mother-in-law and sister-in-law have been charged with felony child endangerment, assault, and false imprisonment for restraining you. Elias faces false imprisonment and possible obstruction depending on what he did with that footage. He already gave you your phone. He did. However, we are investigating whether he uploaded or shared the footage with anyone. If he shared it with family members or attempted to use it to justify the incident, he could face additional penalties. Detective Khan took out her notepad. I also need to ask you some difficult questions regarding your family history. Has Robert ever been physically violent? Are there any documented domestic violence incidents? Is there a pattern of aggression? I thought back over all my time knowing the Vance family. He was harsh with his own children, but nothing like what he did to Anya. He was always prone to anger and shouting. He would throw things when angry, utensils, ceramic bowls, whatever was nearby. He punched a large hole in the drywall once when Elias got a speeding ticket. When I first met Liam, Robert grabbed my arm so hard it bruised, all because I contradicted him. Has anyone ever reported these incidents? No. Patrice was always smoothing things over. She'd say he had a temper, but didn't mean it. That he worked hard and deserved respect. Looking back, she was protecting him, making excuses and sheltering him, instead of protecting us. Detective Khan scribbled rapidly. This history of activity strongly supports our case. It shows this was not an isolated incident. This is his character. The district attorney will want to conduct a more formal interview with you regarding this background. Whatever you need, I replied. I will testify. I will give depositions. I'll stand in front of a jury and tell them everything if I have to. It might come to that, she cautioned. Defense lawyers can be ruthless. They will try to paint you as a bitter, unstable daughter, claim you're exaggerating due to long-standing family feuds. They'll claim Anya was uncontrollable and needed correction. Can you handle that? I gazed at my daughter, small and fragile on the hospital bed, with machines tracking her vitals and bandages covering her injuries. I can handle anything if it means safeguarding her. But I wasn't done yet. The arrests were just the initial step. While Anya slept peacefully, I made several phone calls. I called my manager at the distribution center and informed her I needed immediate family medical leave. I called my apartment complex and told the landlord I would be terminating my lease. I then contacted Vivian Sterling, a lawyer specializing in family law and victim advocacy. Before calling Vivian, I spent an hour on my phone researching attorneys while sitting next to Anya's bed. I read reviews, checked case outcomes, and looked for someone known for being absolutely merciless when it came to defending children. Vivian's name was repeated consistently. She had successfully sued an entire corporate childcare chain for failing to report abuse. She had financially ruined a wealthy doctor who mistreated his nanny. She didn't just win cases, she completely destroyed those who harmed children. Her initial consultation fee was C250, coastal credits, which I couldn't afford, but I was willing to max out my last credit card if necessary. Vivian and I met at the hospital the next afternoon. She reviewed all the evidence, including the chilling video Elias had filmed. Her face remained composed, but I noticed her hands tensing when the fifth blow struck. "I'm taking your case pro bono," she announced, "and I'm going to ensure they suffer for this in every way possible." Vivian was in her early 60s, with snow-white hair pulled into a severe bun and eyes that would likely make a seasoned judge fidget. She wore a sharp charcoal suit that radiated competence and carried a briefcase that looked older than I was. "Pro bono?" I repeated, certain I had misheard. "But your consultation fee alone is waived, along with everything else." She placed her briefcase on the small table in Anya's room and took out a yellow legal pad and 3 sharpened pencils. "I run a highly profitable practice, Clara. I only take cases like yours when they truly matter, and I don't charge for them because money is the least important factor in these situations. What truly matters is justice. What matters is that your daughter is secure and that those who hurt her understand they picked the wrong family to victimize." Tears welled in my eyes. Since arriving at the clinic, I'd been frantically calculating how much the medical bills would be, how I'd manage to pay an attorney, whether I'd have to take out payday loans or declare bankruptcy. The overwhelming relief of having a legal expert on my side for free nearly broke me. "Thank you," I choked out. "Don't thank me yet. What happens next will not be pleasant," Vivian said, clicking her pen. "The criminal case is progressing quickly, which is excellent. But I'm filing a massive civil suit where they will lose everything they own. Your in-laws, your sister-in-law, and their husbands. We're seizing all of their assets, including their homes and investment accounts. They will eventually wish that the criminal charges were the worst thing that ever happened to them." "How does that work? Can we sue while the criminal trial is ongoing?" "Absolutely. Criminal and civil cases move forward simultaneously. The criminal case establishes guilt and a prison sentence. The civil lawsuit establishes financial liability and damages. We will use the criminal conviction to bolster our civil case, but we don't need to wait for it." Vivian began writing rapidly on her legal pad. "Tell me about their financial situation. Do your in-laws own the house outright?" "Yes, it's fully paid for. They bought it 30 years ago. It's likely valued at approximately C650,000 coastal credits today." "Good. That's a significant asset we can pursue. Your sister-in-law and her husband own a large house with a mortgage. Elias made a very good income as a high-level HR manager. I don't know their exact financial picture, but they live lavishly. Private school for the kids, luxury SUVs, and yacht club membership. Even highly leveraged people with assets have a lot to lose." Vivian wrote quickly. "This week, I'll file a permanent restraining order to keep them away from you and Anya. Then comes the civil complaint for assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and negligent supervision. We will name all 4 of them as defendants." "Negligent supervision? Your sister-in-law and Elias allowed their children to be present during a brutal assault. They exposed their children to trauma. That is legally actionable."
Vivian looked up from her notes. What are the ages of Seraphina's children? Flora's 9, Titus is 7, and Xavier is 5. Aged enough to be traumatized, they are young enough to require long-term therapy, which your family, incidentally, caused. I will strongly urge that Child Protective Services evaluate Seraphina's fitness as a mother. The thought of Seraphina being subjected to the intense scrutiny she had always avoided gave me a fierce, wicked satisfaction. She had spent years presenting herself as the perfect mother, the model of parenting. She'd now have to answer for condoning child abuse in the presence of her own children. While Anya recovered for a week, Vivian secured a restraining order against my in-laws, Seraphina and Elias. She filed a civil lawsuit for assault, battery, emotional distress, and intentional infliction of emotional harm. She submitted formal complaints with Child Protective Services regarding Seraphina's fitness as a parent, given her complicity in the assault in front of her children. Anya's hospital stay lasted 7 days. The MRI scan showed slight cerebral swelling, but thankfully no internal bleeding. Her kidneys were bruised, but fully functional. The doctors kept her under close watch, administering strong pain medication and monitoring her neurological responses. By day 5, she was alert enough to watch nature documentaries and eat soft scrambled eggs. By day 7, she was begging to go home. I rarely left her side. I slept in a fold-out chair provided by the clinic, waking only when a nurse checked her vitals or administered medication. My supervisor, a kind woman named Daria, sent me a care package containing warm socks, a heavy blanket, and a note encouraging me to take as much time as I needed. My coworkers donated their accrued PTO hours so I wouldn't lose income. The nursing community supports its own. On the 5th day, my phone started receiving calls from unknown numbers. I ignored them until I received a voicemail from someone claiming to be my Uncle Silas, my father-in-law's brother. "Clara, honey, this is Uncle Silas. I just heard about what happened, and I am absolutely sickened. Robert called me from jail to beg for help with bail. When he told me why he was arrested, I immediately hung up. I want you to know I am 100% on your side. If you need anything, financial help, a temporary place to stay, or someone to watch Anya, call me. What they did is inexcusable." I saved the message. Then I saved 3 others from relatives who had heard about the arrests and were taking my side. My in-law's cousin, Brenna, Seraphina's age, offered to testify about the favoritism. Family divides occur along painful fault lines, and it was clear my father-in-law's violence was the one that finally broke us all. The permanent restraining order was granted immediately. Robert, Patrice, Seraphina, and Elias were ordered not to come within 500 feet of me or Anya. The hearing for the restraining order took place without me present. Vivian handled the judge while I stayed with Anya at the clinic, but she called me later to share the outcome. The judge took one look at the medical reports and photos and granted a 6-year protective order, Vivian informed us. He stated, and I quote, "Anyone who beats a 7-year-old child into unconsciousness has forfeited their right to family access. Your father-in-law's attorney tried to argue it was an overreaction, and the judge threatened him with contempt of court." 6 years? That was even longer than I'd hoped. It can be extended if necessary. Protective orders are often severe in child abuse cases. But here's the most interesting part. Elias's firm terminated his employment this morning. Apparently, having an HR manager prosecuted for false detention is bad for business. Vivian's voice was laced with sweet sarcasm. They've already fired him. The trial hasn't even begun? Morality clauses in employment contracts are powerful things. His firm has a rule regarding an employee's conduct. Being arrested and charged with facilitating child abuse meets the criteria. He's been legally terminated. Thus, his income was reduced to 0. I felt a surge of cold, fierce triumph. Good. Things get better. Seraphina's yacht club found out about the incident and revoked her membership. Apparently, other members threatened to leave if she was allowed to stay. She's also been forced to resign from the school's parent council. How do you know all of this? I have a junior associate who is excellent at gathering intelligence. Also, your sister-in-law made the rookie mistake of posting a vicious complaint about being persecuted on social media, which went exactly as you'd imagine.
People started sharing news articles about the arrests. She's been receiving hate mail. I should have felt terrible about it. Perhaps the old Clara would have. But the new Clara, who had witnessed her daughter's beating, felt nothing but satisfaction. Is she in any danger? I doubt the threats are serious, just online trolls. But she's locked down her social media, which suggests she's starting to understand the consequences of her actions. The criminal trial moved along surprisingly quickly, taking only 11 months from arrest to trial, which is highly unusual for felony cases. The video footage and the clear nature of the crime accelerated the process. Robert Vance pled not guilty, claiming he was simply disciplining an unruly child. His attorney attempted to argue for parental rights and traditional discipline. The prosecution, led by Chief Deputy District Attorney Layla Nader, completely destroyed that defense. She was a woman in her 40s with a spine of steel and a deep commitment to prosecuting child abusers. Her own sister had been a victim of abuse as a child. The defendant is not the child's parent, Nader stated during her opening remarks. He is the grandfather. He has zero legal right to physically punish this child. Even if he did, 14 strikes with a heavy leather belt that resulted in unconsciousness, a concussion, and severe bodily injury is not discipline. It is assault. It is battery. It is a violent crime. The video was played for the jury. Several members visibly recoiled. A woman gasped, covering her mouth. A man in the back row shook his head in distress. Anya's tiny screams echoed through the courtroom speakers, and 2 jurors were seen wiping their eyes. I testified on the 4th day. The defense counsel, Alan Rhodes, who looked like he regretted accepting the case, tried to paint me as an overly dramatic, vengeful relative. "Isn't it true that you've had a strained relationship with the Vance family for years?" he asked. "Yes," I replied truthfully. "They have always favored my brother-in-law over me and treated my daughter as less important than her cousins. And isn't it true you were actively looking for a reason to cut them out of your life?" "No. I kept bringing my daughter around, hoping they would treat her better, hoping they would show her the love a grandparent should." My voice was hoarse. I gave them numerous chances to be kind to her.
They chose brutality, but you admit there was existing animosity. I admit I was hurt by their blatant favoritism. I do not admit that I fabricated what happened. The video does not lie, Mr. Rhodes. You have seen it. The world has seen it. My father-in-law beat my 6-year-old daughter unconscious, while my mother-in-law and sister-in-law restrained me. That is what happened. No amount of implying I'm dramatic changes that truth. Layla Nader offered a slight smile as I stepped down. The jury deliberated for a mere 75 minutes. Guilty on all counts. When the verdict was read, Robert's face went ashen. Patrice, seated in the gallery, started sobbing uncontrollably. Serafina sat stone-faced beside her, likely calculating the outcome of her own upcoming trial. Sentencing happened 3 weeks later. My father-in-law was condemned to 7 years in state prison. My mother-in-law and Serafina both received 24 months for their roles. Elias received an 11-month sentence and a significant fine for false imprisonment. Layla Nader had argued fiercely for the maximum on all charges. Robert received a 7-year term because the judge took his age and lack of prior felony record into consideration. However, the judge made it abundantly clear that if the decision had been solely his, the penalty would have been far longer. "Mr. Vance," Judge Elias Thorne replied, looking over his half-moon spectacles at Robert, "I have presided over this bench for 28 years. I've seen countless child abuse cases. What separates yours from most is the sheer viciousness of your attack and your absolute absence of regret. You have demonstrated no accountability or understanding of the pain you inflicted. You blamed a 7-year-old child for your own barbaric actions. That tells me you are precisely the type of person who belongs behind bars. Robert tried to speak, but Judge Thorne raised his hand sharply. I am not finished. Your daughter-in-law tried to shield her child from you, yet you proceeded to injure the child anyway. You caused a traumatic brain injury. You left permanent scars, and when you were done, you felt pride in yourself. The video captures you smirking at what you had done to an unconscious first grader. The judge's voice rose with indignation. 7 years in state prison, followed by 9 years of strict probation with mandatory anger management and parenting classes, though I highly doubt you will ever be trusted near a child again. My mother-in-law and Serafina were sentenced immediately after. Judge Thorne was equally harsh with them. You two claimed you were simply trying to de-escalate the situation, the judge remarked, but the evidence clearly shows you were active participants. Mrs. Vance, you struck your own daughter-in-law when she was pleading with you to stop her father from hurting her child. Miss Serafina Vance, you openly praised the assault. You praised it. That level of cruelty towards your own niece is beyond comprehension. Serafina's counsel attempted to plead for leniency on the basis that she had young children who needed her care. Judge Thorne was unmoved. Your children watched you facilitate and praise child abuse. That is exactly why Child Protective Services is now deeply involved in your case. Perhaps 24 months in prison will allow you to reflect on the example you've set for your children. Elias's sentence felt almost anticlimactic. 11 months for false imprisonment with a $65,000 coastal credits fine left him pale and defeated. His public defense lawyer attempted to explain that he was merely a bystander who chose documentation over decency. He was a bystander who chose documentation over decency, Judge Thorne explained. As a high-level HR manager, he knew the ethical standard. As a human being, he should have known better. 11 months, but prison time was insufficient for me. I needed them to experience a fraction of the profound grief I felt watching my daughter be beaten unconscious. Vivian was a master of financial warfare. She targeted everything. The civil trial began 8 months after the criminal convictions. By then, my in-laws had virtually depleted their resources on legal fees. They had taken out a massive reverse mortgage on their paid-off Emerald Ridge home to finance Robert's defense team. Serafina and Elias Vance had emptied their joint savings, sold Elias's luxury SUV, and were several months late on their house payments.
Vivian smelled blood in the water. Here's what we're asking for, she stated at a strategy meeting. Medical expenses for Anya, past, present, and future. This includes her hospitalization, ongoing trauma therapy, and any specialist assessments she may require. We estimate $250,000 in medical costs over the next 15 years. $250,000? My throat went dry. That is a conservative estimate. Trauma therapy is not cheap, and Anya will require it far into her adolescence, if not longer. Then we ask for pain and suffering. Your and Anya's lost wages, both past and prospective, due to the impact on your job stability, emotional distress, and punitive damages to punish them severely for their conduct. How much total? I am seeking C3.0 million. I hope to receive between $900,000 and $1.3 million, depending on the verdict. C3.0 million? The figure was staggering. They do not have C3.0 million, but they have assets we can seize. Your in-laws' house, retirement funds, and any savings or investments. Serafina and Elias's home equity, vehicles, Elias's 401k, and Serafina's inheritance from her grandfather. We will take every penny we can, and if they are unable to pay in full, we will garnish their wages for the rest of their working lives. The civil trial proceeded even faster than the criminal one. The guilty convictions in the criminal case performed the majority of our work. We only had to prove damages, which was simple with mountains of medical bills, therapy invoices, and expert testimony. Anya's therapist, Dr. Rhea Shaw, testified to her ongoing trauma. Anya has terrifying nightmares 3 to 4 times a week. She exhibits profound anxiety around older men, especially those who resemble her grandfather. She is forced to miss school sometimes because of panic attacks. Her trauma will require many years of consistent therapeutic support to process. Dr. Choi testified regarding Anya's physical injuries and their long-term impact. The concussion she sustained can have long-term implications on cognitive development. We will not know the full extent of the damage for years. The scars on her back and shoulders are permanent. I testified about the financial instability, the immense emotional toll, and Anya's flinching reaction when outsiders raised their voices. Vivian walked me through every moment, painting a picture of widespread devastation produced by one single afternoon of violence. The defense argued we were asking for an absurd amount of money, that my family did not possess such riches, and that we were simply attempting to financially destroy them out of sheer spite. They destroyed themselves, Vivian responded in her closing argument. My client is merely seeking compensation for the irreparable harm they caused. They chose to beat a child. They chose to facilitate and celebrate that beating. They chose to prioritize their own twisted family ego over a young girl's safety. They must now pay for those choices. That is not spite, that is justice. The jury awarded us $1,050,000. Not the full C3.0 million, but more than enough to bankrupt them. My in-laws were forced to sell their family home to cover legal costs and the initial civil judgment. A young couple from Newport bought the house they had raised their children in, a house once filled with images of Elias's perfect family. My in-laws relocated to a tiny, subsidized apartment in a low-income suburb called Oakwood Flats. My Uncle Silas told me that Patrice grieved for days as they packed up to move, complaining about how unfair it was, how they'd lose everything for one small error. Uncle Silas replied that beating a child unconscious was not a mistake. It was a vicious decision. Patrice stopped calling him after that. The Emerald Ridge house sold for $680,000. After paying off their reverse mortgage for legal bills, court costs, and the realtor, they contributed approximately $230,000 to the judgment. The remainder of my in-laws' payment came from liquidating Robert's 401k, which held approximately $300,000, and Patrice's IRA, which held approximately $18,000. My in-laws settled their portion of the judgment with their home and retirement assets, totaling about $548,000. Serafina and Elias Vance were responsible for the remaining $502,000. Their luxury home went into foreclosure proceedings, but before the bank repossessed it, they managed a short sale that netted them approximately $55,000 after their mortgage was settled. Elias's remaining 401k held $105,000. Serafina's inheritance from her grandfather was $85,000, which she kept in a separate investment account. Their remaining assets, including jewelry and electronics, were liquidated for an additional $32,000. They were able to raise approximately $277,000, leaving them with a substantial outstanding balance of $225,000, which would be relentlessly garnished from any future earnings. Their retirement, financial security, and meticulously crafted existence had all been utterly destroyed. Serafina's life collapsed spectacularly. Elias Vance's professional consulting firm fired him the instant the felony conviction appeared on his record. No respectable firm wants an HR manager with a criminal history for false imprisonment. He was completely unable to find work in the corporate sector. They had to withdraw their children from Prestige Academy private school. The Emerald Ridge home went into foreclosure. The foreclosure process happened quickly. Without Elias's income and mounting legal fees, they missed 4 mortgage payments in a row. The bank initiated action. They attempted to sell before foreclosure would permanently damage their credit, but high-end houses take time to sell, and they ran out of time. I heard more from Elias's younger brother, Caleb, who came to me with a genuine apology on his family's behalf. Caleb had always been a decent man. He had actually spoken up at a family gathering once when Robert was being verbally abusive with Anya,
and he'd been given a fierce lecture about knowing his place. "They're moving in with Serafina's parents," Caleb told me, over coffee. "Her mother and father own a small condo in Sunny Coast, Florida. Elias, Serafina, and their 3 kids share one tiny spare bedroom. It's going to be absolute hell."
They made their choices, I stated without a hint of sympathy. "I know. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in the family believes you are wrong. What they did to Anya was monstrous." Caleb testified at the civil trial, discussing Elias's past inclination to prioritize his personal gain over ethics, as well as Serafina's history of condoning unethical behavior in order to maintain her place as the favored sibling. His testimony contributed heavily to the pattern of neglect and cruelty that defined my in-laws. Even better, Child Protective Services extensively investigated Serafina. Having your children witness you facilitating child abuse and then cheering it on is a guaranteed trigger for red flags. Her children were temporarily placed with Serafina's parents while she completed mandatory parenting classes and underwent a psychological evaluation. Mutual acquaintances told me about the dirty looks she received around town, the endless gossip, and the complete ostracism from her old yacht club connections. The civil litigation was a masterpiece of financial strategy. Vivian went for everything, even my in-laws' retirement funds and Serafina and Elias's residual possessions. The judgment was $1,050,000, which included Anya's medical expenses, therapy fees, my lost income, pain and suffering, and the punitive damages. They couldn't pay right away, but we had strong legal means to collect. Bankruptcy loomed. Patrice had to return to work at the age of 66, this time as a cashier at a discount department store. Robert would leave prison with next to nothing. Serafina and Elias's marriage quickly disintegrated under the financial pressure. They filed for divorce 14 months after their criminal trial. I took Anya and relocated 4 hours away to a smaller coastal city where I'd been offered a management position at a better clinic with superior benefits. We made a clean slate. New apartment, new school, a fresh start. Anya began therapy with Dr. Rhea Shaw, a wonderful child psychologist who specializes in trauma recovery. Anya healed slowly and gently. The nightmares occurred less and less often. She smiled and played again. She made friends at her new school who had no idea what had transpired. She joined a youth sailing club. She laughed when I tickled her. She was still my Anya, only with some wounds that would never fully vanish. Patrice contacted me from an unknown burner number one day, about 3 years later. I had blocked all of their contacts, but she had become desperate. "Clara," she said when I answered. Her voice sounded frail and weary. "Please, we must talk." "We have nothing to discuss," I replied, my voice stone cold. "Your father is being paroled in a year. We have nothing left. Serafina's marriage is destroyed. Her children barely speak to her. Can't we find a way to move past this?" I felt absolutely nothing while responding. "You held me down while your husband was beating my daughter unconscious. You told me to pick her up and leave. You put your pride and Serafina over your own granddaughter's safety. There is no getting around that. Is she doing all right now? Children are resilient." "We have lost everything, Clara. Everything. Do you have any compassion? Anya has scars on her back that will never disappear. She has nightmares where she reaches out for me, but I can't reach her because you and Serafina are holding me back. She flinches when strangers raise their voices. But yes, she is alive and recovering, which is far more than you deserve. We're your family. You stopped being my family the moment you decided hurting a 6-year-old was acceptable." I paused, ensuring she absorbed every word fully. "Anya is my family. You are simply people who share my DNA. Lose my number." I hung up and blocked the new number immediately. Patrice tried to reach out to other distant relatives. I shut that down too.
Anyone who urged that I forgive or forget was promptly removed from my life. I cultivated a new circle of friends who understood that safeguarding your child is not a choice, it is a sacred duty.
Serafina attempted to send a letter via Vivian's office. Vivian forwarded it to me with a note stating I had no obligation to read it. I read it anyway. It was 5 pages of bitter self-pity, blaming me for ruining her perfect life and claiming that the whole incident was not serious and that I had severely overreacted. I shredded it into tiny pieces without replying. The most satisfying moment occurred approximately 3 years following the incident. I was at a coffee shop near my new workplace when I ran into Leah, an old family friend. She had attended the cookout but had to leave early for another commitment. She had heard everything that happened afterward. "Clara, my God," she exclaimed, pulling me into a genuine hug. "How is Anya?" "She is well. Very well. Thriving, actually." Leah smiled with real warmth. "I am so happy. I testified at the trial. I told them how your in-laws always favored Elias and how I'd witnessed your father-in-law be rough with Anya at previous parties." "You did?" "Of course. What they did was monstrous." She gripped my hand tightly. "I also want you to know that no one from our old social circles speaks to your family anymore. Last month, Patrice tried to join our book club, but 3 people walked out immediately. She is not welcome anywhere, neither is Serafina." That truth settled in my chest like warm security. I hadn't sought that level of social justice, but knowing that their community had permanently rejected them felt perfectly fitting. "Thank you for testifying," I said. "It helped immensely. I just told the truth. That is all any decent person would do." Anya and I are simply living our lives now. She is in 3rd grade, actively participating in sailing and learning to play the ukulele. Her friends come over for sleepovers and birthday parties. She continues to see Dr. Rhea Shaw once a month to check in and process things as she gets older and gains a deeper understanding of what happened. Sometimes she asks about her grandparents. I keep my answers age-appropriate and honest. They made some very poor choices that hurt you, so we don't see them anymore. Our job is to keep you safe. "Do they miss me?" she asked once. "I think they probably do," I responded carefully. "But missing someone doesn't fix the wrong they did." She thought about it, nodded, and returned to her coloring book. I still have the difficult days when I vividly recall those moments in the backyard where I felt Patrice's hands on my arms and heard Anya scream. On those days, I remind myself of what followed: justice, protection, and the new life I built for us. People occasionally ask if I regret how ruthlessly I pursued my family. The answer is simple: not for 1 second. When it came down to it, they showed me exactly who they truly were. They chose cruelty over compassion, image over integrity, and convenience over conscience. They harmed my child and demanded I accept it. Instead, I made sure that they understood that their actions had consequences. Real, long-term, devastating consequences. Robert is locked away and has lost both his freedom and his legacy. Patrice, in her late 60s, works for minimum wage and barely scrapes by. Serafina's ideal existence has been shattered into fragments that she will never fully repair. Elias's career is permanently over. Every single day, they bear the consequences of their decisions. Meanwhile, Anya and I are building something beautiful out of the ashes of that dreadful day. We have tranquility, we have safety, we have each other. And to be honest, that is the most satisfying form of vengeance. They believed they could break me, but they never could, and never will.
The powerful conclusion of Clara and Anya's story is a harsh reminder that poor choices have catastrophic consequences, as the family's decision to prioritize ego over decency ultimately cost them everything. Robert, Patrice, Elias, and Serafina were stripped of their wealth, status, and freedom by the chilling $1,050,000 judgment. But this is truly a story of reclaimed peace
as Clara and Anya are now free to build a new life defined by safety and love. If this story resonated with you, let us know in the comments. What moment brought you the most satisfaction? Don't forget to like and subscribe.